Wish life was like more forgiving in the department where I should bring more to the table. I wish I was able. What can I do? The things I want to do. The things I want to do.
Hey there, my lovely little babies. Welcome back to another episode of Stressed, Depressed, and Anxious. It's your favorite local neighborhood baby here, ready to dive into some deep and heavy stuff. But you know me, I'll keep it light and funny because we all need a good laugh on a Monday, right? So grab your favorite snack, your weighted blankets, your candles or lube, whatever you need. Get cozy and let's talk about something that a lot of us have, but we don't often discuss: mommy issues. Fuck. Where do I even start? Before we dive in, just a quick note. If you're already here thinking, shit, another mommy rant, don't worry, because I fucking know, literally can't do anything
without my mommy and daddy. What did you say? My mommy and daddy. I was in my phone. Can you just say it one more time? Daddy.
But you know what? It's okay. It's going to be juicy. It's going to be dramatic. And of course, peppered with my usual humor throughout the episode. So think of this, if you're new here, as a therapy session, but with a lot more laughs and fewer tissues. Actually, who am I kidding? You might need tissues, but that's okay too. Also, I have some exciting news. We now have our very own Reddit community, and it's at r/SDanxious. That's S as in stressed, D as in depressed, anxious, and it's one word, which I'll put in the description. It's a space where we can all come together, share our stories, support each other, and discuss episodes. You can post your little confessionals there. Tell me all about the crazy hijinks you've been getting into because of your mental health, and maybe you'll be featured on the episodes. So head on over to Reddit and join the conversation. Now, let's get into mommy issues. All right. So, what exactly are mommy issues? It sounds like something a therapist would write on a Post-it note and just slap it on your forehead, right? But seriously, it's a real thing and it can have a huge impact on our lives. I should know. So let's break it down. Think of mommy issues as the emotional equivalent of stepping on a Lego. It's painful, it's surprising, and it sticks with you longer than you'd like. It's like carrying around a little emotional backpack filled with unresolved feelings and all of your childhood baggage. Who the fuck knew that our moms could leave us with anything more than just like a bad haircut and embarrassing baby photos? I knew. I fucking knew. So, in a nutshell, when we think about what mommy issues actually are, they're emotional and psychological challenges that stem from our relationship with our mothers. Duh. These issues can manifest in a bunch of different ways, like trust issues, fear of abandonment, low self-esteem, and even problems in romantic relationships. If you've been listening to my podcast long enough, you know that I have all of these problems and more. So it's like your mom hands you an emotional inheritance, but instead of money, it's a box full of unresolved feelings. So, yay! Thanks, Mom. All right, let's talk about some of the common ways mommy issues show up in our daily lives. So picture this. You're in a relationship and you start noticing either A, you're overly clingy, or B, super distant. You might be thinking, is it just me or is there something more going on here? Spoiler alert, it's not just you. These behaviors often trace back to how we bonded with our moms. It's like this weird emotional blueprint that we follow without even realizing it. This fucking bitch is in my DNA. I'm going to get a little bit nerdy here with some psychology that I picked up going to therapy and on my TikTok For You page. Ever heard of the attachment theory? It's this idea that the way that we bonded with our primary caregivers, usually our moms, shapes how we connect with others later in life. So If you had a secure attachment, you're probably doing okay. But if your bond was rocky with your mom, well, welcome to the club. We meet on Mondays. There are a few different styles of attachment that can come out of your relationship with your mom. So let's go through them. The first one, like I mentioned, is secure attachment. That means you feel safe and valued. Your relationships are pretty healthy. You go, Glen Coco. Whatever. You win a prize. All right. So the next up is an anxious attachment, which means that you're clingy and you're constantly worried about being abandoned. Relationships can probably feel like emotional roller coasters for you. Next up is avoidant attachment. You're distant and you find it hard to trust other people. Relationships are more like a series of like awkward first dates. Now, I usually got confused in the past when looking at attachment styles because I was like, wait a minute, I'm both anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. Like, what the fuck? Like, leave it to me to not fit into any category. Like, what is going on? But actually, there's a fourth type of attachment style, which really does align with me, and it's called disorganized attachment. So it's a mix of both anxious and avoidant, and it's often stemming from trauma. Inconsistent caregiving. Yeah, you heard it here first. Basically, it's like a BuzzFeed quiz that you never wanted to take. So, which attachment style are you? But instead of finding out which Disney princess you are, you're discovering why you freak out when your partner doesn't actually text you back immediately. These mommy issues don't just mess with our heads, they mess with our hearts too. If you find yourself repeating the same patterns in relationships, like always choosing the same partners that are emotionally unavailable or being the one who needs constant reassurance, it might be time to take a closer look at your relationship with your mom. It's basically like the universe is playing a cruel trick on us. Like, here, have some unresolved childhood trauma. Good luck with that. But acknowledging it is the first step to breaking the cycle. And I mean, if I'm doing anything else, it's acknowledging it. So, okay. Now that we've defined what mommy issues are and how they manifest, let's get personal. I'm going to go ahead and share my own experiences with my mom and how they've shaped who I am today. Spoiler, it's a roller coaster of emotions, so buckle up. Talk, let me share my story. So, growing up, my relationship with my mom was really complicated. As a little girl, I felt like a prop, like a cute doll that she could dress up and show off. It was like I was her Instagram feed before Instagram even existed. And then as I got older, things changed. I felt disliked and neglected. Imagine being the star of a show and then suddenly nobody wants your autograph anymore. And we all know what happens to child stars. As a teenager, things went from bad to worse. I was angry, misunderstood, and basically felt like I was living in a perpetual episode of teen drama 101. I remember screaming matches and a whole lot of, you just don't get me. And spoiler alert, she didn't get me. Fast forward to my young adult years, and after all the continuous trauma, I found myself stuck in this weird emotional limbo. I love my mom, but I also resent her. I want to hug her, but I also want to punch her at the same time. Does anybody else feel that way? No? Just me? Okay, so let me explain even further. When I was little, when I say I felt like a prop, I mean it. Okay. And it wasn't just a feeling, it was actually happening to me. I remember my mom loved her retail therapy. And when I was younger, she would go at shopping in New York and come back with tons and tons of these like really poofy, full of tulle dresses for me to try on and little outfits. And she would put me in these outfits and she would take pictures of me for little photo albums. And she had a revolving door of friends coming by from the church and from her work and from where the fuck ever. And every time they came by, I was there to perform. I was there to literally sing or dance or do whatever she asked to make her look good, make her friends smile, and tell me that I was pretty and, oh, your daughter's so cute, and then get out of the way. When it came to actually figuring out who I was, whether that was engaging in play with me or asking me how my day was or having a literal real conversation with me as a little girl, kind of getting to know me, if you will, that was pretty much non-existent. So I was quite literally a prop that she really just didn't want to hear from unless, I was making her look good. And then in my adolescence, she literally ignored me also, but she also kind of like engaged in me in the way of disliking me. So anytime I heard from her, it was about criticism, it was about my personality and all these different things about me that she didn't like. And if she wasn't telling me about that, she wasn't telling me anything. She was running off to work. And when she was home, she again surrounded herself with other people other than me. And she really didn't want to hear about anything that I had to say. So I don't even have really concrete memories of her in my adolescence other than her just constantly criticizing my personality. And then I became a teenager. And like I said, I was angry, I was misunderstood. I just had been tired of all of this, I think. And so it came to a head. And I remember like all those years of her just not wanting to hear from me and how I just retreated to my room because if I was around, she was going to go ahead and criticize what I was wearing, what I said was wrong, what I wanted to eat was wrong, what I didn't want to eat was wrong. Like anything that could be possibly, anything that I was doing was potentially wrong. And so I retreated to my room and she would call me moody and everything, but like I wasn't moody, just was reacting. And I felt like she just didn't understand me. And it made me so angry. And there are so many examples of things that my mom has done that just fucked with me. Okay. And I'm going to give you a few of these examples because I think it's important for you guys to know little traumas. Okay. Just going to give you a few. So from when I was little, I remember the horrifying ordeal that was dinner time. Okay. Dinner time was a horrifying ordeal. And I'll tell you why. Do you guys remember the movie Matilda with like the Trunchbull and Miss Honey? And do you remember that scene with Bruce, chubby kid that had stolen a piece of Mrs. Trunchbull's like chocolate cake or something, and he got caught and he was brought on stage. Everyone stayed after school. He was brought on stage, this elementary school boy, and Cookie, the school cook, brought out this huge chocolate cake. I mean, a mountain of chocolate cake. And the Trunchbull was like, you're going to eat all of it. And he had to eat all of that cake, which was basically impossible. But everybody started cheering him on, and he, eventually ate the whole cake. Well, my parents would pile on a mountain of food onto our plates every dinner time. And I'm not kidding you, okay? Imagine being 5 years old. When I see people on like TikTok and whatever, they have their little kids and they're kind of showing their daily routines. And they're showing this like cute little portion plate from Amazon where, they're putting together the kids' dinners. I'm like flabbergasted because I'm like, that is a normal plate for a 5-year-old, right? Like if you're 5, your stomach is like not the same size as somebody who's much older, right? So my parents didn't seem to get that concept, okay? They just did not. They made the same food every day, and every day, every day they would pile it onto our plates like we were fucking Bruce, okay? I'm not kidding you guys. Mountain of food. Impossible to finish. I just didn't have the size stomach to just shove that in. Okay. But if that wasn't bad enough, my mom or my dad would sit beside us and would have this leather belt on their thigh, sitting there threatening and saying, you better eat all of your food or I'm gonna beat your ass. Okay. So you're just sitting there as a little 5-year-old, like, fuck, like, I'm in so much trouble. I need to eat all of this, but I literally can't. I would get about, I want to say 7 to 10 bites in before I'm like, holy, I'm like super, super full right now. And the whole time it's like, you can't talk, you can't do anything, you just have to eat this food. You have to do this, otherwise you're in big, big, big trouble. And they're gonna beat your fucking ass. And I remember the whole time I'm getting like talked down to, like, you know, you better eat this food. Why are you eating so slow? Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And I don't even know what the rush was, but like that was the constant thing. And I was told off for like eating slow because I was like I honestly think I was eating slower because of, like, I knew that I couldn't finish it. And like, I don't know, I just was delaying something. I don't know what it was. But anywho, like most of the time, my mom or my dad would end up getting up from the table and they would walk away because we were taking so long. They're not going to sit there for like a good hour, hour and a half, right? Like they're going to move on, especially because the table was in the kitchen and like, you know, they wanted to obviously go off and like go and watch TV or something. So they weren't going to sit there for a whole hour, but they would, you know, be shouting out to us like, you better finish your food or we're going to beat your ass. And it's like, fuck. So when they would leave, sometimes my brother would like offer to help me. He was always wanting to play hero. I think he just watched so many fucking cartoons that he just took on that role. But he knew he didn't want me to like get my ass beat and stuff like that. So he would try eating some of my food. We would take turns going into the bathroom and like trying to like literally flush some of the food down the toilet. Or we would try like things like putting the food in the garbage slowly, but like piling on napkins and other garbage on top so like they can't tell that we threw it away. Like we would try every trick in the book because we just literally could not finish the food. And the more fucked up part of this that my mom would do, I mean, my dad did it too, but my mom would do is like on Saturdays. So on Saturdays, we went to church every Saturday. And on Saturdays, everything was different. Like my mom would make a feast for whatever reason. She would make a feast of food on Saturdays. And she would invite like everybody, not everybody, but her friends from church, you know, and like friends from wherever, like whatever friends she had, and some of my dad's side of the family and everybody. They would all come over to the house. And it was like a big party. It was like this huge affair, right? And so on Saturdays was the day that she made all kinds of yummy, delicious foods. And you had no, you know, kind of strict thing of like, oh, you have to eat this or you have to eat that. There was no like threat with the leather belt. It was like, eat what your heart desires, right? And so on that day, like I would eat what my heart desired. I was like, okay, fucking free for all. And I think like just being a little girl, like I just had I don't know, I just didn't have the wherewithal to like figure out like what I'm supposed to be eating. Like I didn't know when to tell if I was full because I just had never been given a chance to figure that out ever. So on Saturdays, every single Saturday, and I'm not kidding you, like every single one, I would binge eat. So I would like eat all this amazing different foods. It's like, oh my God, I'm finally getting variety. This is so delicious, whatever the fuck it was, right? And so I would eat a ton of it to the point where I would just throw up. And I did this every fucking Saturday. And looking back now as an adult, you would think that my mom would be like, okay, like something is off here. Like she just definitely just like doesn't know when to stop. And like this is a problem because like I don't know. I feel like as an adult, like these are things that you can reason. I don't need therapy to be able to like reason that, right? But my mom Never did. Like, your kid throws up every weekend, like, fuck. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, that was like, that started my unhealthy relationship with food, which involved over a long course of time things like binge eating, not knowing like what my limits were for quite some time when I was a little girl, starving myself, going days and days and days without eating, just all kinds of ups and downs of my relationship with food. And yeah, it was super, super fucked up. And by the way, just to sprinkle a little bit more onto that, like, she also did this thing where she would go out and buy a bunch of like snacks, goodies, cookies, cake, candy, whatever the fuck it was. Like, whatever, kids would like, she would buy, sugary snacks, right? She would buy these things when she went to the market, and she would put it at the very top shelf in the kitchen. And then she would say, "You can't have any, unless I give it to you. Like, you cannot have any of this shit," right? And then she would leave the house for 12 hours. Like, leave us with our nannies. And like, we had no other entertainment except for like watching TV or like whatever playing was, because we weren't allowed to go outside or anything like that. And if we had any of these snacks, we were in trouble. Like, we literally were like in big trouble, built everything, right? And looking back again as an adult, I'm like, what the actual fuck? Like, if you didn't want us to eat this shit, honestly, they weren't good for us. Like, why did you buy them, you psycho son of a gun? Like, why did you buy this shit, right? Okay, that's light. That's really light stuff, right? Moving forward, like, another thing I can tell you guys about was like, when I was little, my mom did this thing where like she would always look at me and like just scrunch up her nose a little bit. Like, she just like, it's like a cute little like scrunch up your nose a little bit. She would do that, and it looked so, like, affectionate, and I would do it back, and it was like our thing. She just like scrunch up her nose a little bit, and I'd do it back, and it was like cute, right? And I was thinking like, oh, every time she did it, I'm like, oh, I feel loved and everything, right? Come to find out, when I just get like a little bit older, like 10 or 11, right? She decides to tell me. Why she decides to tell me, I don't motherfucking know, right? But she decides to tell me like, oh, no, like, the reason why I did that was because like I thought your nose was just a little bit big, and especially on your face, like your little face, like your nose is just like big, and I wanted like your nose to get smaller, so that's why we would do that. Like, like, that's why I would do that, and your dad would sometimes do it too. And I was like, what? Like, think about that. Think about the fact that like she was hoping like some facial like exercise of my nose would like reduce it somehow on my little face. And I was thinking that she was just doing this little cute thing that was like lovey-dovey, and she decided to drop it on me, that like, actually, no. Actually, I just like literally didn't like the nose that you were born with. And I was trying to like reduce it somehow. Fuck me. Like, seriously. And another thing that she later dumped on me to like traumatize me was my dad, I've talked about it before. He was a long haul truck driver or whatever. He was like working for moving companies and driving in his 18-wheeler, and he'd be gone for like weeks and sometimes months at a time, right? And when I was little, like, my dad didn't personally buy me anything. Like, he bought things in the house, he paid the bills, like, whatever. But like, I don't have any tangible memory of my dad like actually buying me anything like specifically like, here's a gift, right? He just didn't do that. And even as I got older, like, that was not his thing. Like, he wasn't going to come to you and be like, oh, here's a gift that I bought for you because I was thinking of you. Like, no. So when I was little, one day my mom comes back, from New York. She comes because we're living in Jersey. So she comes home and she's like, shows me this beautiful, like, well, it wasn't even that beautiful. I think I just made it beautiful in my head. But it was like this peach colored dress. It was like all poofy and everything. And she's like, brings it home, and she's like, this dress, your dad bought you this dress. And I was like, what? Like, he bought me a dress? I was so happy, not necessarily because of the dress, but just the fact that like he bought me something. Like at the time I was like, wow, like my dad bought me a dress. Wow. And I was so happy. I put the dress on and like dancing around, like, oh yay. And I talked about it for years, like not continuously, but like off and on. I'd be like, I remember that dress like my dad bought. Like it just stayed with me because it was like the only thing that I really recall him like actually, you know, buying for me. There was one other thing actually that he brought home for me, and it was like this little teddy bear that I named Driver. But like other than that, you know what I mean? So I was like, I just thought I was just so like, oh my gosh, you bought this for me, right? Of course. Like fast forward years later, dumps it on me again. Like, actually, I brought you that dress. Your dad didn't buy you that dress. I bought you that dress. I just said it was from your dad. Like, but I brought it for you. Like, he had nothing to do with it. He didn't even know about it. And like, as an adolescent, I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, what? And again, like looking back, and even then at the time, like I thought this too. Why? There was no reason for her to tell me this. Like, you already told me this lie. And then like you're like now telling me the truth, quote unquote. I don't know, did she get tired of me like being like, wow, like, oh, I remember that one time where he bought me a dress? Like, did she just get sick of like giving him the credit? And was she pissed at him and just wanted to just like, what was the reason? Like Cardi B would say, like, what was the reason? Like, what was the reason? You know what I mean? And I think I asked her that in that moment too. But it was like, why even tell me that he bought it for me in the first place? Because I wasn't like dying for my dad to buy me anything. Like I wasn't even thinking of that at all. And when it's just that when she brought it home, I was like, wow. But like if she never told me that was the case, I wouldn't have like lost out on anything. I wouldn't have given a fuck. You know what I mean? I was like, why did she do that in the first place and then traumatize me after? Psychotic, you know what I mean? And then let's get into the things when I was like older too. A little moment in my life that I can tell you guys about is like I was so let me just preface this with like when I was a teenager, of course, and all throughout like my life at home, every piece of clothing that I wore and everything that I had was bought for me by my mom because I did not get allowance. I had no like money that was coming to me. I wasn't working or whatever. They didn't allow me to work. So like I had no means of buying my own shit. And also I had a mom who's very controlling. And again, like I said, retail was her therapy. She was very critical of me and she would always tell me that like I had like out of everybody like she would personally tell me like out of everybody like you have no style. Like whenever we would go to the mall together, whatever I picked, no matter what I did, it didn't matter. Like she would just say that I had no style. And I would go to the mall with her, my little sister who's like elementary school age at this point, and my older cousin who was like 4 years older than me. So she was like, say if I was like, you know, like I don't know, like 13 or 14, she's gonna be like 16, 17. And everyone else, like my sister, she loved the Disney store. She loved anything that had sequins or glitter. Like that was her thing, right? And my older cousin, like she just liked anything that was trendy, which I did too. But everything that she everything that she picked out that she was like, oh, this is cool. Like I like this, you know. If I wanted it, my mom would be like, well, no, because you're just not old enough to have this, whatever thing it was. It could be fucking jeans, you know? And looking back, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why did she do this to me? And my little sister, she's like, oh, yeah, everything she picks up is cute. It's just sequins and glitter. It didn't matter what the fuck it was. She just liked anything that had sequins and glitter at that age, right? But anything that I chose, she would be like, yeah, you have no style. Like, this, you know, whatever. And the traumatic moment I'm going to tell you guys about, I'm prefacing, is because one time we're in the mall, we're shopping for like back to school or something, and I'm walking in front of her, and she's like, you look like such a slut, out loud as fuck, because I'm walking in front of her, so loud as fuck so that I can hear, and like probably anybody who's walking by can hear. You look like such a slut. And at that moment, I was so like shocked because like, my mom never really called me, and if you're listening, like as a person who's maybe like more verbally abused by their mom, I'm sorry, but like my mom criticized me all the time. She was mean to me a lot, but like she never called me words that, like, I don't know, somebody at school would fucking call you, somebody who hated your guts, like bitch, whore. Like, well, she did call me whore before, but like, and this, yeah, but like she didn't really make it a habit of calling me those like heavy words, you know what I mean? So when she just said like you look like such a slut out of nowhere, I was like shocked and devastated. And I honestly think that like she would like leave me in my shock and devastation and tell me that I was like, you know, dramatic, if it hadn't been for the reaction of like my older cousin as well. And like my sister, I think at the time, like that was just like they were also flabbergasted and like shocked by what she said. And I think like when she realized that, she was like, oh, okay, well, I misused the term, like I didn't mean it exactly that way. I was just saying like, your outfit's a little scandalous or whatever. Meanwhile, I'm wearing a skirt that she bought for me. I'm wearing an outfit that she brought for me that she didn't, it wasn't something she brought for me years ago. It was something that she had brought for me very recently, right? And she had this habit, by the way, that, I mean, she, like I said, she would buy all of my clothes. So she would come home with clothes and be like, here, I bought this for you, go try it on. And some of it I would like, some of it I would dislike, a lot of it I would dislike, honestly. But like, because she bought whatever she wanted in her style. She was an adult. She didn't know what the kids like, quote unquote, you know what I mean? So she just bought whatever she felt like looked good. And it took zero consideration into like what I would like, And so, whenever I did have something that she bought that I liked, she noticed, and by noticed, I mean she noticed it because I was wearing it more often. She would go into my room, into my closet when I wasn't there and like throw it away. I'm not even shitting you. I'm not even shitting you. Like, she would go into my closet and throw it away. The time if it was something and she noticed that I liked. Right. And then, yeah, like she called me a slut and I'm wearing something that she'd recently bought for me. Okay. And it was such a critical, formative time to like when, as a young girl, like I'm just like kind of dealing with the over sexualization and like, commentary on my body. Because I was pretty young, I was like early high school, and it's like that's everybody knows like how high school girls are, how high school guys are, like and even when you go out in public, like how creepy men are when you're a girl that age. And I had like the big tits, the ass, I was like curvy in that way. And like, I just didn't feel at that age, you don't feel quite comfortable in your body. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, if you're a woman out there or like younger girl listening, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, you just don't feel comfortable in your body. And it's, people like your mom that can have an impact on, you're feeling maybe a little bit more positive or a little bit more negative, because especially in the years that I was in high school, because that was like the age in pop culture of people criticizing all these celebrities that were like in really good shape and saying that they were like fat. Unless you were like anorexic skinny, they had a lot to say, right? It was like pre-Kardashian, whatever. Like, I don't know, it just wasn't the era of women with real curvy bodies. It was like just the era of like you have to be fucking stick skinny, Anyway, even without all of that, like having your mom call you a slut out loud as you're walking in the mall was insane. And even when she like kind of backpedaled a little bit, she was just saying like she was sorry about the term, that she felt like, oh yeah, I use that term. But like she really wasn't sorry about what she had said at all. Like she just wasn't, she meant every fucking word. And it was just, I still remember it till this day because it's like fuck, like, why? And she would also tell me, like, with all her criticisms, she would also tell me that, like, I have to tell you this because, the other people are going to say this about you, or they're going to tell you this, or they're trying to talk behind your back. And it's like, bitch, let them. Like, I don't want to hear this from you. You know what I mean? So I spent so much time just like feeling that this is a person who's just like my bully. This is a person who does not understand me. I could tell her, she would have this like whole talk track of like, you can talk to me, you can tell me anything when it came to boys and stuff like that. And it got to a point where like my older cousin was dating. She would bring guys home that she was dating. She would talk to my mom about it all the time and stuff like that. And like they were like two peas in a pod. But my mom would always say this thing of like, yeah, you can talk to me about like whatever, like if you're, thinking about having sex, if you're like, you like someone, you're dating someone, you're talking to somebody, like talk to me about it, No, you couldn't actually trust her with any of that shit at all, whatsoever. And I learned this because I would even sometimes try and tell my mom, I think this guy is cute. And my mom would be like, you have no taste. Like, he's not cute. You have no taste. And anyone, like my little sister pointed out that she thought was cute, like a celebrity, because she was like, like in elementary school at that time. Or my cousin would, tell her like, oh, this person is cute. She would have a different opinion. She would be like, oh yeah, like, yeah, they're cute. Oh yeah, that's in my taste. Da, 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 da. But with me, she was always like, no. And it's like, bitch, first of all, I don't care if you don't think this person is cute. Like, that wasn't the point of me. You know what I mean? Like, she could have simply just been like, oh, okay, like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, but she always had a criticism. And over time, like I said earlier, just learned like, dude, like, this is not somebody who's in your corner. This is not somebody you can trust. This is not somebody like that wants you around. And I always just felt very unwanted and very hated by her because of all these things. Like, and I'm only telling you guys the lightest of the light of trauma that she's done to me. It was tough. Okay. It was really tough. And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Actually, a lot of times I feel like my mom, was my worst enemy and probably still is in some ways. I feel like the worst enemy you can have is a person that's that close to you, and who's else is close to you than your mom, It just really sucks. And a lot of times I realized that, I started to realize as I got older too, that my mom really didn't like me because she really didn't like herself, Like she really just did not like herself. And she projected onto me a lot, but of course you got to get older to realize that. You got to go through like therapy and reflection and everything. In a moment though, it just rocked me and I hate that. So yeah, not fun, but I definitely want to hear from you guys about whatever mommy trauma you have, because I definitely want to feel less alone about this issue. Whatever stories you have, however fucked up they are, I want to hear from you about it. And I think that'll help me open up more, which subsequently I think that'll help me let go of some of this shit. Hopefully I can let go of some of this shit. Mommy issues, like something that's so ingrained in you when you have them, that is so hard to just unweave it from your DNA. All right, enough with the heavy. How do we cope and heal from all of this bullshit? First off, therapy. Think of it as a spa day for your mind. I want to tell you guys that I was the first one in my household to go to therapy. Okay, I broke the generational mold. And when I was a senior in high school, I got really clinically depressed for the first time in my life, like super, 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 super duper depressed. When I finally went to college after that, I did go to the school's therapist, like I went there because my university had, that available for free. And I was like, okay, I'm a broke college bitch. I'm going to take advantage of this. And I took advantage of it because I was really having a tough time coping. Every day my mom would call me and she would like trauma dump on me what was going on in the marriage with her and my dad, which was never positive, what was going on in the house, all of her financial troubles. Every fucking day she would call me and dump all this on me, and she wouldn't even ask me if I was all right. She wouldn't even take into account the shit that I was dealing with because she didn't give a fuck. She would just trauma dump on me. And I wasn't who I am now, I didn't have the tools or the mental capacity to like realize all the stuff that I realized now. And I just took all of it on. I took all of that emotional burden that she dumped on me on, and I felt like I had to carry it. I felt like, holy shit, all this stuff is going wrong. How can I help? I feel so bad. On top of everything personally that I was dealing with, just trying to navigate a new city, trying to navigate a crazy schedule between classes, working full time, and trying to figure out where my next meal was going to come from. Okay. So I got to a point, of course, where I was running myself so ragged that I'm like, let me take advantage of this and sit in front of a person and try to process this. And in that first experience with therapy, like, I think I was hearing what was being said to me, but I wasn't really kind of taking it in, if that makes any sense. I didn't understand myself. I didn't understand what the fuck was even happening. I wasn't all there to just summarize it. And again, like, I heard the therapist, but like, I just didn't have the tools to process it. Then fast the fuck forward, and I'm living at home post grad, just, I don't know, just like working in corporate America and like, making some good money and stuff like that, hanging out, doing my thing. And I reach a point where anxiety has really rocked me, and I started to have anxiety and panic attacks really bad. I felt like I was having a heart attack every single time. I went to the ER several times because of this, and each time I went, they were like, yeah, nothing's wrong with you, it's just an anxiety attack. And I didn't understand what the fuck was happening, because I'm like, I'm perfectly okay, there's nothing. I associate anxiety with like a specific event has to be happening to you, and then maybe you have anxiety, of course. But like, I just didn't understand what they were saying. Like, what do you mean? I was sitting there, it was fine, I wasn't thinking about anything bad, and like, all of a sudden I have this feeling like you're telling me it's just like anxiety. What is going on? So it got so bad and it got so debilitating that I was like, okay, I need to see a therapist, like, now. And my mom was like, you're crazy. And my sister was like, you're crazy. And everyone in my household, including my dad, you're crazy. Like, I guess you're nuts. And I just didn't listen to them, thank goodness. And I just took advantage, used my insurance, went to this therapist that was local, and sat down and talked to her. And that's when like therapy started to like really have a positive effect. And I could hear what was being said to me, if that makes sense. Like, my therapist, I remember that particular therapist was the first one to really, talk to me about like, actually she wasn't, but like, I think the first time I really heard it was like talking to me about like, considering like getting on medication. And that was still pretty early, when there was still this stigma. There wasn't all this talk about mental health like there is now. Everybody around me in my household and whatever, like, everything that I'd ever seen on in pop culture, movies up to that point, anybody who was on medication basically was considered to be like absolutely batshit crazy. And that's how I thought of it. And that's why I was like, no, thank you. No, I don't want to be on medication, because I don't want to like feel like I'm absolutely fucking insane and that I need these pills from a shrink to like be able to function. And it took a while to get over that. And then finally, like, I had enough panic attacks to where I was like, yeah, give me Xanax. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take the whole lot. Okay. And over time, over years, like, I started to really utilize therapy as a safe space to talk about all of my issues, to work them out, to like figure them out and get better. And that really helped. And I'm saying all of this to you guys because if you have mommy issues or other issues, whether it's personality disorders, whether it's like, because these mommy issues led to my borderline personality disorder. Like I said earlier, like, there was a lot of inconsistencies between, my mom kind of like, yeah, she's there, and she, I can't say it was all bad. Like, she definitely had moments where she, showed me she was nice to me or something like that. Or it's not just that, like, she took care of me, right? Like, she worked, so she, yeah, like, she bought me the clothes she wanted to buy me, but she bought me clothes. Like, she did all these things that, I think a lot of parents sometimes maybe even don't do. And she always talked about how much she cared about me, she cared about my future, she cared about what happened to me, and loved me and all this kind of stuff. But it was so like back and forth. It was like one moment you could be good and the next moment you were like chopped liver. You know what I mean? And I think these early experiences with my mom and the neglect and the, being a prop and then being neglected, being a prop and then being neglected, I think it had a huge impact on me and helped me to develop borderline personality disorder. And I'm dealing with it now. I'm dealing with it in my interpersonal relationships a lot. And um there's so many little triggers that I have to deal with as a result. And so therapy is a place where I can get help with that. So I want you guys to know that, like, yeah, it's worth it. Not everybody has access to it too. Like some people, if you don't have insurance, like it's so expensive, like it's like crazy for you to get it. And shit like that, but it is more accessible than it once was. And if you do have access to it, I think it's worth it to take advantage, because think about all the people that literally can't take advantage of it. You know what I mean? Because they can't afford it, they don't have insurance or whatever it is. So take that spa day for your mind and work this shit out as much as you can. I'm still working on it. Okay. If therapy isn't your thing, or if you want to supplement it, try talking to your friends. I think like for so long, I felt so alone about all of these issues because, like, I wasn't talking about it. And I didn't even know that anybody else kind of went through anything similar. So I felt really alone. And I think that, like, contributed to my depression and all of my stress and everything. And it felt like this big weight I was carrying around that it just was just for me, And talking to my friends about mental health when it became less stigmatized, like, really helped me to realize, like, yeah, I'm not the only person who's anxious in the world or depressed or whatever or stressed. Like, so many people have these same issues. And even learning about like personality disorders and seeing a lot of people even recently come out now and, like, very like well-known people say that they have borderline personality disorder is like so impactful. So yeah, try talking to your friends. You don't have to tell them every little secret, but like it's a good thing to like realize that you're not alone. You can try journaling. Some people shy away from that. If you're like me, you might have trust issues and be like, oh shit, like what if I journal and then somebody finds it or some shit like that? Yeah, you can journal and then put it in your shredder. It's just a cathartic act of like really getting out your thoughts. And like when you're writing something like that down, whether it's like about your day or like whatever's recently happened to you can really get those thoughts out of your head and onto a tangible piece of paper. And it's very cathartic to do that. I can't really explain the feeling, but like it helps you to organize your thoughts and really think them through, because when you're writing them, you're not just like writing like a bunch of like bullet pointed facts. You're like kind of getting into it, just like I am on this podcast. And it's helping you to kind of understand the source of your feelings a little bit more. And it feels like really good to do. You can shred it afterwards, or you can keep it and review it later on and realize how differently you feel from that one moment, which can also be helpful. Or you can try things like screaming into a pillow or crying. I mean, trust me, it does help. I've recently caved to the whole crying thing. I mean, always, had instances in my life where I cried. I'm not a robot, but I never really showed it. I had this whole mental talk track in my head because growing up, whenever I would cry, whether it was because I had to like be forced to be on my knees for like hours and like you sit up straight and like be punished all the time for like crazy things, or like be threatened with a belt, or like actually be, beat up with a belt or like whatever the fuck it was, like, or just being like sad and shit like that, whatever the fuck it was. I always was being constantly told that like I wasn't allowed to cry, or I'll give you something to cry about, and kind of like being told that I needed to get over things. And so I developed this mental talk track that like, yeah, crying isn't this acceptable thing. And like I would, even when I started to cry, even when I'm alone, it would tell myself like, oh, you sound so pathetic, but these thoughts are not even mine. They're just like bad programming. And I need a software update. And I got one. You know what I mean? Like now understanding and acknowledge like crying is okay. You're born crying. Crying is so helpful because it helps you to release something. And even screaming into a pillow helps. Like Sometimes it's just too much and you need to release it somehow. And that's why crying is a thing in the first place. So don't be fucking afraid to cry. I cry at a ton of things now. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'll cry at a commercial. I'll cry at like whatever. Like, if it emotionally impacts me, I will cry and I don't give a fuck. Okay. And I didn't always know that it was okay to cry, but now I do. So if you need to cry, and remember, it's okay to love and resent someone at the same time, because human beings are complicated. We're just like Rubik's Cubes covered in emotional stickers. And one profound thing that I realized was it's totally okay for me to have empathy for my mom, understand the traumas that she's been through. Like, it's her first time on earth too. Have love for her and all this kind of stuff. And realize on the flip side that I resent her, I'm angry at her. You know what I mean? Because two things can be true at the same time. The other thing that I also want to touch on is like decentering your parents. And especially since we're talking about moms, decentering your mom. Like I said earlier, mom, mommy and daddy, like, yeah, I center my mom so much that like, even if any emergency situation is happening, like, I'm going to call my mom first. Like, I need to know her opinion. I need to know her thought. I need to know, whatever. And it's like, why though? Like, actually, why? I was centering her so much. And the thing is like, when you're young, your parents are like a step right below God, right? Like, and technically, God to you, because you feel like they know everything, that their opinions are true, whether it's about you or someone else. Like, it's like end all be all. Like, what they think of you matters so much. And like, as you get older, you are supposed to realize that your parents are just people. Like, if I pop out a baby tomorrow, like, I'm still just a person, a very fucked up person, actually. And like, you have to realize that your parents and your mom is a human being, and a very flawed human being. Everything that she thinks is not always correct, whether it's about you or someone else, so that it stops having such a profound impact on you. And you can just look at her as like another human being with thoughts and actions that are sometimes or even oftentimes wrong. And I've had a lot of trouble doing that, but I am consistently trying to do that because I don't feel good about the fact that I center my mom. Like, I just don't. I tried so many things to like, she's like a situationship, honestly, because I have tried so many ways to get her to love me, like, as a person, like, I remember even in that time I talked to you guys about coming home, from college and stuff like that, and having that job and everything. I tried to buy her love and affection. Like, I would have my money and like just be taking her out, taking her, like, to expensive dinners and like shopping and like giving her money and like just like living a lavish life with her, like just trying to like, literally at the time, I didn't quite realize that was what I was doing. I didn't realize what was behind my actions, but like, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to like make her like me because she did not like me. Like, without all of that, she treated me like absolute shit. And also, if you asked her what she likes about me, she would tell you, I love her career success, and intelligence there, and her ability to, be successful financially. And then you're like, oh, well, take me a step deeper. Like, what do you like about her? I like that she like understands my opinions. Like, she understands my opinions about things and stuff like that. And she shows me respect. And it's like, okay, well, but like, personality wise, like, what do you like about her? Like, she would just crickets, because that was what it always was. She even told me to my face after I asked her, hey, if we were the same age, like, would you be my friend? Like, this was when I was younger. And she was like, no, we would never be friends. Like, you're nothing like me. Fuck no. And if that doesn't tell you like where we stand. So I tried to buy her love. That never worked. She loved the money. She loved the whatever she got out of it. But like, no, that didn't work. And so I'm still going through the motions of, trying to decenter my mom. And if you're, not realizing that that's what you're doing, I hope this helps you to realize it. And I hope that you start to decenter your mom too. All right. let's move on. Okay. All right. Time for a new, or rather old segment that I'm bringing back called The Worst. This is where I share the absolute worst thing that's happened since the last episode. So let's see. The other day I had a mental breakdown because somebody that I really genuinely do not like or fuck with anymore, because they traumatized me, did horrible things to me throughout my life, called me and was trying to wish me a happy birthday. I just was irrationally angry. Why do I have this person calling me? Why do I have them on my phone? I need to block them, because it was very triggering for me. And my advice to you guys is, if you have anyone in your life that, or even if they were previously in your life, whatever, like an ex or, somebody who you just don't want anything to fucking do with, block them. Don't listen to people who are like, oh, if you don't care, like, just don't care, like, whatever, let it ring. Like, no, even sometimes seeing somebody's number or name pop up on your phone can be more triggering than you realize. And that's what happened to me. So fucking block them on everything. And so you could just like not have to have that triggering moment. Cause I was triggered and I was pissed. Like, I need to change my number. I need to like not interact with, like, not even have an ability for this person to even attempt to interact with me, And I'm the queen of changing my number, or I used to change my number every year, but now for the last couple of years, several years, like, I've left my number the same, and I really do need to change it, because like, there are people that I just do not want calling me, because I don't want to be triggered or re-traumatized. So yeah, if you guys have a thing that has happened since the last episode that you want to share that is the absolute worst, I want to hear from you guys. So, send me an email, DM, post it on Reddit. Let me know what was the worst thing that's happened to you. Now I want to hear from you. If you have any mommy issues stories that you want to share, be sure to email me at localneighborhoodbaby@gmail.com or DM me on Twitter or X. Fuck you, Elon Musk. And my username is SD_anxious. That's S is in stressed, D is in depressed _anxious, which will be in the description. Also, again, be sure to join a new Reddit community at r/SD_anxious. Let's build a community where we can support each other. Your story might just be what somebody else needs to hear. So be sure to post on there, get in touch with me, let me know, and you could be featured on the episode. All right, before we wrap up, I need to talk about something very important, and that is monetary support. Producing this podcast takes a lot of time, effort, and money, but I love doing it. And I want to bring you guys quality content with top-notch sound quality, and I need your help to continue to do that. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do and you want to support it, please consider making a contribution. You can support me monthly on Spotify for podcasters or buymeacoffee.com/SDanxious. All links that I'll post below. I will make the donation very easy, because you can just go on my website, sdanxious.com, and click on donate, and that will allow you to donate to the podcast. If you want to become a member, I will also drop special confessional episodes for members only, where I spill the tea on some of the worst things I've done. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on that. All of those things will help me to, again, like, keep making quality episodes for you guys. And I really need a new mic. There's things that I want for the show that will benefit it. So yeah, I know how the economy is. I know, that we're all very conscious of how we're spending our money. And just note that, like, you can choose the amount of your donation. If you want to become a monthly donor, you can start at just 99 cents. So it would be so helpful. I would absolutely be thrilled if any of you guys wanted to support this show. And even if you're just supporting by listening, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much it really means to me. I love all of you. That's it for today's episode, folks. Remember, it's okay to have complicated feelings about your mom. You're not alone in that. We're all just trying to figure this shit out, one therapy session, one podcast episode at a time. Thank you for tuning in to Stress, Depressed, and Anxious. Stay strong and have a day, month, week, year free of stress, depression, and anxiety. Until next time, bye.
I've got a routine that always shocks me. I can't take control of the world around me. Thought I was boring, but how could I be when I can't take control of the world around me? I've got a routine that always shocks me.